Salutations, one and all. It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we're back for another day of the Astro Weather. We're still working on the studio and putting some modularity into the mix. You know, I was just chatting with our good friend Seeger in chat, and we were talking about this guy by the name of Pete Namlook, and it's actually his last name backwards. His birth name was Coolman or Cool Man. And so he went by Pete Namlook, and he was this incredibly prodigious electronic musician. And he had a label called the Fax label. And they would basically put out between him and other artists on the label, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 records a month, vinyl and CD, a lot of vinyl. And he just had this incredibly prodigious output. And then he died of a heart attack. And, you know, if you look at his sun sign, he was a Leo. So, you know, kind of works, right? Kind of fits the sun sign. But the thing that always struck me about Namlook was, sometimes people are like this. Sometimes people will be just incredibly productive. Like they will have this huge volume and body of work. And maybe they have a sense of predestination that their time here is short and limited. So they have to cram as much in as possible. And he reminds me of one of those guys. There's another guy, very different, but another Englishman by the name of Bryn Jones. He went by the name of Muslim Gauze. And he would be a very controversial artist today. But he did the same thing. He made all of these records. And they were all based on sort of Palestinian themes with, you know, like, you know, Middle Eastern percussion and you know, doumbeks and tablas and very interesting, sometimes quite dark music. And there were some of his albums were like Intifada. He was a very interesting character, very polarizing, kind of an amazing output though in terms of his music. So it kind of reflects this idea that maybe some people are aware of their own predestination. And as a result of that, they're just like incredibly prolific. And I'd put Namlook in that camp. Anyway, just a little side note there. How is everybody? Are we rocking in the free world today? It looks like Milton wasn't as bad as a lot of pundits projected it to be. We were tracking it yesterday on 15 minutes, and I was looking at all the various Milton cams, live broadcasts of various parts of Florida, and it didn't look at that time. This is what, 11 o'clock a.m. It didn't look that bad. It looked wet, not that much wind. They had the odd like cyclone that was, I mean, if you think about it, destroying the infrastructure of a town like city like Tampa Bay would be huge. Huge. I'm not sure that the powers that be would allow it. Let's put it that way. We got a text here from Thor to Door, our guy here, Steve. We made it out okay. We made it okay. Power went out at 11:05 p.m. Eastern Standard. Oak branched all around and a few trees down around the neighborhood, making coffee on my Jackery. So he's using his Jackery to power up his coffee maker. I believe it came through Polk County as a Cat 2. You know, it's not a huge surge. So I think Florida, you dodged one. You dodged a bullet, Florida, for now. Thank God. Do we need more fucking trauma right now? Let's do a quick shout out to some of the people that got here early, and you get that early shout out. Seeger, number one. He's number one in the house. I am the violet flame in action in me. Channel Elizabeth Clare Prophet. Sigurd, I'm going to send you, I have a dance track, a very hard techno dance track. I'm going to send it to you. And I use Elizabeth Clare Prophet in this track. I'm going to send it to you. It's too long to play on this show. It's like, I don't know, it's about an 11-minute banger. And I mean banger. This thing is four to the floor. And I sample Elizabeth Clare Prophet, and I'm going to send it to you today. Nora Rashid, the queen of speed. She's here. Brandy Hedetta, Sin City, Kabuki Theater. Hi, Bo. Leanne Ott. Hi, Leanne. Good to see you. Hey, there's Robert Phoenix. Hey, Robert Phoenix in the house. There's my man, Ryan. Ryan. What's going on, brother? Misbehaving 2. Laura E. Christina Jersey. Hi, Christina. Laura, No Limits. That's our guy, Johnny. Yacht Boy. Magic Mika. Hi, Magic Mika. Neil Smith. Back in Wisconsin, making a difference, straightening things out. You go, man. You go, Neil. Tom Jordan, up and about. Let's see. Mindy Beth. Hi, Mindy Beth. Janet, Platinum Happiness. Boy, was she. I got to throw her up there. Look at that. Janet was amazing at her conference. She just had hip surgery, and she fucking danced her ass off. It was inspiring as hell. Warlanda checking in from Virginia. Good to see you, War. Carol Moore. It was a nice fall day in New England. I got to throw this up there from the man, Joe. Like and subscribe. Yeah, Secret is kind of, this is this idea that sometimes people have this weird sense of predestination, and they're just, crazy. They're just crazy workaholics. And he's stating that Rainer Fassbender, who did 100 movies, had died before he was 40. This is very German. Yes, please come help us become part of the 11th house on locals. We'll be coming back there. We're going to do a private locals event here soon. Mary Grether, the Muse Memorandum. It's our gal, JJ. Paul Netton. Paul, what's going on? Paul, we're due for communication. We are due for communication. Harry Bowie, hey. And Sharon Lewis just survived a tornado in Vero Beach. That. Good job, Sharon. Good job. We got Janine, PMSO. The gang is here. It's like Trump's hitting New York. Morris says, good morning. Just heard President Trump is doing a rally MSG on 10/27. Should be interesting to see what will happen. That's just before the election. Well, that should be spectacular. Moonsprouts here. Amy Gillis here. Yes, if you want an astrological reading, you can go right there. I did 3 of them yesterday. I got to throw this up here. Milton was from Seeger. Milton was like waiting to see Depeche Mode get the Pet Shop Boys. I know, man. That's such a great analogy. Oh my God. I am not a fan of the Pet Shop Boys. Just not a fan. East End Boys, West End Girls, kind of like it. And you were always on my mind. Oh no, the song they did with Dusty Springfield, I kind of like that. And that's my Pet Shop Boys. Everything else is, ugh. Neil Tennant's one of those guys that gets away with talking instead of singing. Kind of in the Lou Reed camp. All right, let's get into the weather. 8:10, and I'm getting into the weather. Look at that, look how efficient I am. I was listening to some Lyle Mays this morning. as I got things together. There we go. Here we are now. Things are looking a little more complex. Just a little more complex, aren't they? So what's interesting is that Jupiter, our friend Jupiter, right here, is currently conjuncting Kamala Harris's ascendant. And I don't know if you have followed her interview circuit this week, but this is the most access that America has had to Kamala Harris since she was tapped on the shoulder and said, "You go, girl." Starting with 60 Minutes, which did not go well. Did not go well. Not go well. But then she hit The View, and I think she was on Colbert, and she's got Howard Stern, and these are all really just powder puff pieces that are there to ensure her popularity and get softball questions. 60 Minutes was as close as she'll get to an actual real interview discussing real theoretical political issues. But I'm just noting that Jupiter's on her ascendant, so all of a sudden she's chatty Cathy. Right? It's kind of how it works, especially in Gemini. Just a note. I guess I could ditch those transits on the outside because it's really what's going on in the inside. But we got this today, Grand Cardinal Cross. We have a Grand Cardinal Cross alert. Sun square Moon, Sun opposed Chiron, Sun square Mars, Mars square Chiron, Mars opposed the Moon. We're coming into a kind of a wide opposition now with Pluto. And this Mars cycle takes us to 6 Leo. So it's gonna hit that opposition with Pluto. That's gonna be interesting. My sense is here, this is sort of a big picture view. This is a big picture view. And it kind of leans into my topic for 15 minutes, which follows on Boxcast and Rumble. Links in the description. By the way, hit that like button today, please. Let's see if we can push the algorithm a little bit. And watching these first responders who are basically volunteers in North Carolina is fucking inspiring. I have to tell you that. It's really inspiring watching these people come from all over the country in overwhelming the red tape, the yellow tape, the emergency tape, whatever you want to call it, of FEMA. By the way, apparently there's a something like a 800-bed FEMA facility that's 80 miles away from Asheville or something like that. Like if they wanted to, they could put up 800 people there. No problem. It's unoccupied, but that's a different part of the story. So it's really inspiring watching these people kind of drop their lives and just go help other people that they don't even know, right? They don't know them, but they do know them in some ways. They're part of their family. They're part of this interconnected web that we sometimes lose sight of in a very fundamental way. And this actually leads into, again, my discussion over on 15 Minutes, which is, let's talk about white people. Because as I go through all those photos, what am I noticing? Most of the people down there are white men. They're white men. You look at the redneck, they call them the Redneck Air Force. Gee, I wonder why they call them the Redneck Air Force for a reason. You've got the Cajun Navy. Jeez, I wonder who these people are. You got the Hoosiers coming down from Indiana, just dropping their lives, right? They fit a profile. So this is kind of This is going to be my topic of conversation. I'm going to save a lot of that for then. But when we see this Grand Cross, I can attribute some of these things that we're talking about to this Grand Cross. Because Mars in Cancer is action oriented, and it's action oriented in what? A time of need. You know, Cancer is home, family, hearth, community, the values that we all, there are values that people hold, right? And these values are organic values. It's the fiber that connects us, right? It's the fascia that connects each, and you don't have to be white to experience that. I'm not saying you just have to be white, right? Because there are people who are clearly in that situation who don't fit this profile that I'm talking about, but they do fit the greater profile that I am talking about, which is coming to rescue and aid to those others who need it. That's Mars in Cancer. It's Mars in Cancer. It's the best attribute of Mars in Cancer. It's kind of like, okay, we have this disaster that's happening, but pay attention. Like, I want people to pay attention to what's happening, because you're not going to read about it in the papers. You're not going to see it on the mainstream media. If you dig around on Twitter, or you dig around in some message boards, or maybe you'll have some people that have some YouTube channels, pay attention to what's happening. It's important. If people say, well, what can we do? What can we do? Well, you're seeing what people can do. And we won't know what we need to do until the time comes. And when the time comes, then you spring into action. And this is what we're witnessing here with Mars in Cancer. It's a beautiful thing. People helping other people out. And even Libra, Libra's like, okay, we have to balance the scales. FEMA isn't really doing shit. You've got to go online and fill out a form to get your $750. You can't get online because there's no power. So FEMA has done nothing but block efforts to help people out. So then what happens? You have to have these other people come in who will do the job of FEMA. It's showing us how much we don't need government. Are you paying attention here? So this is the balancing act. Well, you're not going to do it, well, we're going to do it, right? Some Mars square. This is why they don't want people down there, because they don't want the other people to get help. Well, that's part of it. That's part of it. They don't want people down there showing them up, showing that they don't need them. Because there are people, why? What do we need these people for? They're not doing anything. And who's doing the things that we need to do? It's us. They sent a tractor trailer truck with chainsaws. And guess what? They're electric. Now, I use an electric chainsaw. Even the best electric chainsaw is a piece of shit. I'm telling you right now. You could spend, $600 for the best electric chainsaw. It's a piece of shit. It will break within constant use, break within 2 weeks. No. You don't have to recharge them. And if you don't have any power, how are you going to recharge the chainsaws? There's governmental aid for you. So that's happening. People are going down there. Guess what? They're using. Sorry. Thank you, Nora. Usually I wear like a collared shirt. I haven't really do this. I'm not wearing a collared shirt today. God. Here I am. I've got this great rant going. I got a muffled mic. Hold on. I was going to do, let's see. How do we do this here? All right. I'm just going to hold it up like this. That way I can talk directly into my mic. There we go. It's like this is what's happening. This Grand Cross right now, right? We're being shown, and they have been put on notice. We don't really need them. In a time of crisis, who do we have? We have each other. And this is where the Sun in Libra is balancing out the equation. My mic is muffled. Well, I'm holding my mic directly to my lips now. Audio is, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe they're fucking with me. Can I take their fuck? Oh, I know why. I know why. Okay. I know why. I got to close this. And I know why. I know why. Okay, hold on. Okay, so the mic has been competing for a source. My bad. It's been competing for a source. Let me do this. Hold on. There we go. You should have just pure, unimpeded, dulcet tones coming from me now. Yeah, I was too ambitious. I had a show planned for the next segment, and I had Zoom open, and I think the Zoom was actually taking some of the mic effect. Plus, I'm working on a new intro for Russ, and I had GarageBand open, and I think the mic was connected there. Anyway, can we hear me now? I think we're good, right? Hopefully we're good. Let me see. Just check my mic settings down here. Audio. Yep, I got it. Okay, cool. All right, let's get back to the chart. Thank you, everybody, for giving me the heads up. I just got to find the fucking chart. All right, thanks, Ryan. Cool. Yeah, I just had to make the old adjustment there. All right. So you guys can still see what I'm talking about. You can't maybe necessarily hear what I've been talking about. You can see what I'm talking about. So just to recap, what this chart is representing is anytime you get into a Grand Cross with transits, it represents a crisis. Right? This is, we're in crisis territory here. But not all crises are bad. They're not all bad. You know, again, these are people whose lives have been devastated. I mean, I've seen pictures of Chimney Rock, and there's a town, and there's nothing left now. I mean, literally, it's just gone. So I'm not glamorizing this crisis at all. This is huge stuff that we're dealing with here. But the response to what's happening is, it's the story that isn't being talked about enough. And again, just to go through this, the Sun in Libra is trying to balance, right? It's trying to balance the non-effort of FEMA with the effort of the folk, Mars and Cancer, right? You know, what's blown my mind is that after 9/11, and they went into Iraq, which was just destabilized to shit. What did they bring with them? They brought suitcases full of cash. Suitcases full of cash. And who did they give it to? They gave it to like the Iraqi warlords or whoever they were going to deal with on the ground so that they could start making deals. Suitcases full. That's what they should have done, theoretically, in North Carolina. Why not? You know, here you go. Here's What's your name? You create a ledger. What's your name? Okay, here you go. Here's $1,000 right now. No questions asked. Just, sign in on the ledger. Give us your, blah, 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 right? You give them your details, unless they have a little fucking iPad that's powered up and you can, whatever, right? Like, that's how you do it. Then you stay in touch with these people. But at the end of the day, what's happening? It's like they're showing us that we really don't need them. We really don't need them. And that's why this isn't being covered. And FEMA doesn't want people there because, again, they are trying to block the efforts so that they can fulfill some kind of mission, which is partially true as well. No, they don't want people there showing them up. That's what they don't want. They don't want people showing them up. Bottom line, end of story. Let's talk about this moon in Capricorn. We talk about this moon every month. And it is a dry, arid moon, which probably helped a little bit from an astrological standpoint with this Milton thing. I'd like to think it did. But just today, in passing, like the Capricorn moon is a tough moon. People who have Capricorn moon in their charts, they're not always the most emotionally demonstrative people. And it's okay, right? It's okay. Like the moon is in its opposite sign here. Give them time and they'll eventually soften their emotional bodies because that's the nature of Capricorn. They're usually born into a situation where there isn't a lot of emotion kind of free floating around. So, it's kind of what they grow up with. And it's a very Spartan, kind of austere, sacrificial version of the moon. And what I mean by sacrificial is we'll sacrifice comfort. Sacrifice comfort and feeling at ease so that the emotional body can be attenuated and can be engaged in some form of accomplishment. That's our Capricorn moon. And today, it is part of the Grand Cross. So Libra wants everybody to win, right? Libra wants everybody to have a seat at the table. That's the nature of Libra. And today, that notion is in conflict with what's going on. Today's one of those days in your personal life where you may have to make difficult choices. And that's based on the moon. Well, look how fast that Mercury. Remember when Mercury was hanging out retrograde? It got up to 29 Virgo. I mean, Mercury is just completely shot through that part of the zodiac. It's at 24 now, right on Spica. That's a good degree for Mercury and Spica. Speak beautiful things. Speak beautiful things. I mean, I believe that, right? Even though Mercury's in square with the moon, right? The conjunction with Spica is, it's poetry. It's beauty. It's words that tickle your ears, or at the very least, highly complimentary. And it's kind of tough too because this Capricornian moon is also squaring Mercury, right? I have a Saturn Mercury square, so it's not quite the same, even though Capricorn is the ruler of Saturn. It's one of those squares where you may be surprised by what somebody tells you. You may be surprised by someone who has something kind or nice to say about you. That is, I think a lot of us are preconditioned when something like that happens from someone who we don't expect it from. We usually think, okay, what's the rub here? Why are they saying this? So they want me to loan them money. What's what's the fix here, right? So this is one of those days where it could be difficult to take things in. And you could be that person to another person as well. You could be sharing something insightful or harmonious or complimentary, and they may not be able to take it, and it's okay. It's okay. The other thing with Moon Mercury squares is that a lot of times our emotions and our instincts are in conflict with our brains. So when people have a Moon Mercury square in their chart, which often doesn't happen, well, it can't happen. When they have, I don't see a lot of it, but when it does happen, it's when the individual will override their instincts at times with their rational thought process, much to the detriment of their instincts. They will overcorrect and then be instinctual, much to the detriment of their mental process. Right? So it's a sharpening of the blade where intuition and rational thought and reason are being worked out in an angular relationship so that over time, those two things become easier for the individual to not only embody, but to act on. So today is one of those days where we encounter it. So is there a way to fact check, right? Like, so you can fact check this to some degree. So today, right, the moon is in sextile with Saturn. So I would say that if you're going on instinct, then Saturn would be the determinant factor, and it would be yes, this works, this pans out, this fleshes out, yes, go with it. As the moon moves through Capricorn tonight and tomorrow, it goes into a sextile with Neptune, and those kinds of choices become easier. You can flow into them. So I would say that as the day progresses and you check in with your emotional or instinctual body, those choices become somewhat easier. Now, the moon will still square Mercury, so you still go through this fact-checking process, but the moon is now leaning into this Piscean zone where it's much easier to flow with what you're feeling, even though what you're feeling may not always be great. Moon in Capricorn, it's not like we're all bouncing around full of joy. This is the moon where you get things done. And you sacrifice your emotional needs in some ways. Now, as we move through the rest of the day or night, depending upon where you are, this moon is coming in and opposing Mars. So now we're really getting into that tight Grand Cross. And I guess the word that I would use ultimately to put all this together is paralysis. There's some paralysis, kind of over the course of the next 4 to 5 hours. The moon is how we're feeling, Mars is how we're acting, and you really can't act until you understand how you're feeling. And there's a lot of processing going on with that feeling. Oh, if I say this, am I going to hurt this person's feelings? They won't think it's very complimentary, even though Mercury is conjunct Spica. It's like, hey, you look great today. Oh, you look really good. Did you lose some weight? Like, in most cases, that would be a flattering thing to say. But today, that person would say, you know, what? Was I fat before? It's kind of one of those days. It's kind of one of those days. I think if you're going to get the most out of this, find the right cause. Find the right cause and roll up your sleeves and go at it. Just find the right cause, roll up your sleeves and go at it. Whatever that cause can be your own life. When you look around at your life, go, oh shit, I got some things to take care of here. Roll up your sleeves, right? Take care of it. I mean, I think with Grand Crosses, there's lots of energy. You know, you get these hard angles and these oppositions. I mean, these things are cyclotronic. So it's just a matter of where to put the energy, you know, how to deal with the tension. And I think today is one of those days where we could have a discussion about delay. You know, Mercury's coming in and squaring, it's going to start to square Pluto more intensely. That's going to be very interesting, especially in the final degrees of Libra. You know, right now we're in the what they call the Via Combusta, or the burning path, which is basically from like 23 Libra to 11, 12 Scorpio. It's like the hot zone of the zodiac where things are burned away. The dross is burned away. And so Mercury's moving into the burning path, squaring Pluto. And a lot of very uncomfortable truths will be revealed, both on a national, global level, but also, you know, in your own lives as well. These can be very uncomfortable truths. And a lot of times there are things that we don't want to see or we don't want to know. And they could be about us. You know, when you get into that Mercury Pluto square, you're forced to dig in with the old shadow, right? You're forced to dig in there and go, oh man, yeah, I'm kind of lacking in this area. I need to really do something about it. And I think today is one of those days where if you have that kind of insight, and by the way, Mercury is going to continue to square Pluto over the course of the next 5 days. So this deep inquiry, right, with the hard angles, which forces you to go deeper, is going to be around for a while. And of course, the sun is going to continue to square Mars. So you can put some action. You can have some, action items once you understand, man, I really need help in this area. I need to get at it. I need to go after it. The good news is that Mercury is trining Jupiter. So these thoughts can also expand. So there's into other areas, right? It's kind of like, okay, all right, how can I turn, this, turd burger into a fillet or something like that? Jupiter says it could always be worse, right? Don't you just love that? It could always be worse. When you're really like down in your cups and you run across that ultra positive person, man, is this and this. Hey, guess what? It could always be worse. And they're right. You know that they're right and you hate it, but they're right. And that's Jupiter and Gemini trining Mercury. Hey, it could always be worse. Well, let's see what you do have. And these two things are not mutually exclusive. It's not that you can't kind of dig in and also have the epiphany and say, oh yeah, there's a higher meaning or higher value that I can apply to this. Because we're all looking for that, aren't we? We're all looking for this thing that we come across in our lives, and it's an obstacle or it's something about ourselves or another person, whatever. And we run into it, right? And ultimately what we try to do is we try to learn something from it. What was my role in it? Or, man, I don't need to be around that person anymore. Let me, elevate the people. Let me elevate the people I'm hanging out with So there's always something that we can learn from life, right? It's like a living theology. And with Mercury here trining Jupiter, it's a perfect example. I mean, you can see, oh yeah, I understand. I mean, some people just say that's a rationalization. You're just rationalizing what you're going through. Or you're just rationalizing the thing that you just went through. And now that you have done it, well, you can have this rationalized thought. But there's some truth to that, but there's also something bigger. And I'll tell you a quick story, very, very quick story. I've told it before. And it has to do with the exact thing that I'm talking about. I'm in my 20s. I'm living at home. I'm going to college. I'm in this kind of awakening phase. Like I'm doing yoga, I'm paying attention to my inner life. And I get into a hassle with my father. And it has to do with where I parked my car and where his vehicle is. And he comes out to move the car, asks me to move it, and we kind of bark. We're two dudes and we bark at each other. And so I come back out and I said, hey, listen, I'm sorry I barked at you. Have a good day. And I mean it. He says, well, you're just telling me that so you don't feel bad about what just happened. Well, you're just telling me that because you want to feel better about it. I'm like, okay, if that's your takeaway, right? That's like the rationalization. If that's your takeaway, that's fine. No, I mean it. Have a good day. So later that day, I'm back, I'm at home, and I get a phone call from him. And he says, can you come pick me up? I'm like, where are you? Well, I'm down at the auto body place in town. I got into a wreck today. And it wasn't a terrible wreck. I mean, it was enough to put his truck on ice for about a week until they pulled out some stuff and replaced the bumper. And, it was but he got into a wreck, right? And I don't know, I don't know if, my saying that to him changed the vibration of the day and changed the vibration of the month. I mean, I thought about it. I really thought about it. And I thought, well, what would that have been like if that had been my last interaction with my father, right? That we just barked at each other. And so, yeah, was I covering my spiritual basis? Of course I was. But I wouldn't want to live with that memory either. And that's why I went out and I talked to him. And lo and behold, that day he gets into Iraq, right? So I'm telling you this because, yeah, you can rationalize it, but there's something there, right? There's definitely something there. So this is this Mercury trine to Jupiter. So yes, it can always be worse. It's the attitude adjustment. That's what Jupiter does. Jupiter is the attitude adjustment. Jupiter is, attitude, gratitude, right? Jupiter brings more, right? It's beneficent. So today's one of those days. The sun is moving closer in trine as well, 17 degrees. It's a really interesting chart today because there's so much tension and there's so much angst. And there's a lot of restlessness in this chart. And at the same time, there's like a higher level that you can connect with if you can step outside of it. Think of the Grand Cross as the pleroma. And you're stepping outside the pleroma to this higher value of Jupiter. We saw the Grand Trine, Venus, Saturn. Although Venus is really starting to separate. It's at 8 degrees now. So we're kind of getting the last of the best of the Grand Trine here, this water Grand Trine, which again, as far as if we're going to have a water Grand Trine and we're going to have a disaster in North Carolina, the timing is great. The timing is great. Mars, Cancer, people taking things into their own hands, acting as the authority. Trine Saturn. All right. There's more. There's a lot more. Venus-Uranus opposition. Keep your eye out for interesting encounters with other people that seem happenstance today, because they may not just be happenstance. All right, let's get into the star of the day. Oh, I always feel like I have to take a shower. Let me get the banner up. We'll do the Bruce banner. Yes, it's him. It's him. I don't even have to show his name. You know it's him. You know what he reminds me of? He kind of reminds me of, maybe it's a Gavin thing. He kind of reminds me of Gavin Rossdale of Bush. He's got he's got that slick back hair, right? Same deal. Just as creepy in some ways. Anyway, so True Hemp Science is the sponsor of today's show and every show. And if you type in 15MINS when you get an order of $100 or more, you will get the goodie bag. And the goodie bag will contain something like Starlight and some nice little droppers here of doughs and some other products that will come along with your order as well. $150 or more gets you free shipping. There's always a 30-day money back guarantee. There you go. So people who were at the event got to meet Chris and hang out with him. He's such a cool guy. He came by the barbecue afterwards and told us some really, really great stories. I wish he would. I wish he would have told the story that he told us at my kitchen table on the show. Maybe I'll have him on one of these days and I'll tell that story. Very cool story. All right, let's take a look at Governor Newsom, as Trump calls him. He's another Jesuit like Trump. Trump is a Jesuit, if I'm not mistaken. He went to Penn, and he went to another school, didn't he? I think Trump's a Jesuit. Newsom's a Jesuit. He went to Santa Clara. And he does that same kind of thing with his hands. Anyway, everything you need to know about Gavin Newsom is on his ascendant. Virgo rising, Pluto on the ascendant, and I mean bang fucking on. Look at that, 21-21. And he fits the image of a Virgo rising. A Virgo rising person never leaves their house until they are together. And that's Newsom, right? He's always together. Not a hair out of place. Nary a hair out of place with that Pat Riley haircut. But he's an intense guy. Now, what's interesting is the transformational potential of Pluto. Like, I can show you pictures of Gavin Newsom when he was young, and he had light in his eyes. He had light in his face. You could see it. There was a there. There was somebody home. But over time now, all we see is darkness. There's a darkness about this man. There's not just a darkness, but a viciousness about him. And it's as if he's sold his soul. And so what we get now is raw, naked Pluto. We understand that this man has aspirations, whatever they are. Maybe president someday, who knows? But he has aspirations, and he has intense aspirations. That's the nature of Pluto. So he went from light to dark. Maybe one of these days, Gavin Newsom will find the light again. Because, I had a girlfriend who had I've told this story before. She had a cafe in his district when he was a supervisor in San Francisco down in the marina. And she said he was the coolest guy. He always came by, drank coffee, can I help you with anything? Right, stay in touch with me. He's like working the freaking marina. Like, what a great place to have a district. Chestnut Street. He's working Chestnut Street. If you've ever been in Chestnut Street in San Francisco, you know what I'm talking about. It's all, high-end conspicuous consumption. But, he was accessible. He was there. Anyway, he's not there. He's not the same Gavin Newsom, I can tell you that. He's got Venus here in the 12th house. And how many times we talked about Venus in the 12th house being related to affairs? The secret relationship. Hello? How many times this guy had a fucking secret relationship? A lot. Even in Virgo, it's almost as if he's trying to cleanse himself of his his anal relationship to relationship. He's got Jupiter in Leo in the 12th house, and it's conjunct Venus. So I would think that behind closed doors, when other people aren't around, I think Gavin Newsom could be very amorous with Jupiter and Leo, and could be very seductive. Like people, women love power. I mean, it's true. I'm not saying anything that's outside the lines. Women love power. He's got Pluto on the ascendant. People with Pluto on the ascendant have to learn how to deal with power. So ultimately, they would be attracted to that. He's a Libra. He's a good-looking guy. He's not maybe necessarily a good guy, but he fits the Libran profile. Am I right? And he's got that Mars-Jupiter trine. He's got Mars in Sagittarius. Nobody's going to tell him what to do. He's got a Mars-Pluto square. And, this is somebody who will do anything for power. I mean, at the end of the day, I think this is what brought on his darkness, is this Mars-Pluto square. And he also makes deals. When we look at people like Joe Biden and George Bush Jr., they've got those sons in the 12th house, and they're the consummate backroom deal guys. And Newsom has some of this with Jupiter there. Like he's looking for the big perk, right? The big payout. And Mars in his chart is clearly going to work overtime towards those ends. And now what's interesting is he's got a Mars Saturn. Is that Mars Saturn? Yeah, it's Mars Chiron square. Not as interesting. He's got this Moon Saturn square. He's got Moon in Capricorn, which is what we're talking about. I think he's adopted, isn't he? Gavin Newsom's adopted. And based on his history of being adopted, and that Moon in Capricorn, just not a lot of emotional juice to go around. And not only that, but it's squaring Saturn in his 7th house. I would say that, how they people are dehydrated, that they don't drink enough water. This guy is emotionally dehydrated. Look at him. Just look at his face. He looks emotionally dehydrated. Yeah, he's got a Moon Pluto trine. So that's really, really good for, again, getting what he wants. Right? Like he can attune his emotional body to Pluto. The Moon in Capricorn is very ambitious, right? So he can channel his emotions to get what he wants, but it's not necessarily going to feed him or even slake his emotional thirst. He's got a Moon Sun square as well. Interesting. So think of Gavin Newsom as somebody who has kind of a almost desert-like relationship with his emotions. But he also will trade that for power. And power and emotions aren't the same. You can get an emotional rush off of power, but that's almost addictive and you have to do it again. It's not the same. You know, when I look at his chart, I'm like, how the fuck did this guy get into politics and stay there? Because he has this T square with the sun square moon and then the moon square Saturn and the sun opposite Saturn. It's not quite rebellious, but like this is somebody who could be at real cross purposes with themselves. I think it's the power trip. It's the power game. And even his true node in Aries over in the 8th house, man, that's all about power, right? The 8th house is the underworld and it's sexual, and Aries is the male principle. You know, Warren Beatty once said, I had to make a decision if I wanted to be an actor or a politician. And I decided to be an actor because I wanted to get laid more. I mean, basically, that's what he said. I think Gavin Newsom is the political version of Warren Beatty. What's interesting is that Warren Beatty is also adopted. And Warren Beatty is an Aries. So he is the opposite of Gavin Newsom. I would not want to cross Gavin Newsom. This is not somebody I'd want to cross. Not with that Mars-Pluto square. Like he would not be a very nice person in spite of his Libran tendencies. Okay, there you go. There's your True Hemp Science star of the day, Gavin Newsom, taking us right up to the top of the hour. All right, thank you everybody for being here. I hope you enjoyed today's Astro Weather. Don't forget to hit the like button before you get on out of here. And please join us over on 15 Minutes, which will be both on Rumble and Boxcast. And we'll see what's tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. So we're going to have Russ Winter. I'm not sure if we'll do Rumble. I got to check in with Russ. But he will be here, either on YouTube or Rumble. So our guy Russ is back. All right, take good care of yourself. Treat each other well. God bless. And bye for now.